Yo, welcome today to another episode of Flipping Miami. I'm your host, Raul Balufe. Thank you for today. I have a special guest, Brandyn Schwalm from right now. He is in the mountains in Colorado, some massive house over there with and stuff. Brandyn, I met through and Greg, and dude, Brandyn, yes, man, he does full wholesaling. He pretty much travels a portion of the year. He lives down in South Florida, and he conducts this in Tampa, and I know those are the two. But Brandyn does tons of deals. He lives. I'm very passionate about living a life that you enjoy, having the business run for you, and is an amazing example of that. So I think we'd be value out of what he's got to say and how he was able to build it and start it, and maybe pick his brain for a little bit. But dude, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, bro. And sorry about the Wi-Fi. The house that I'm at is in the middle of nowhere, and I didn't really think about that when I booked it.
Yeah, but yeah, because right now you're in Colorado, so you live in South Florida.
Yep.
How long are you planning to stay over there? By the way.
Well, ever since quarantine started, I headed out to Sedona, stayed out there for about 5 weeks. Been here for a couple weeks, and then I'll probably be here at least until like early mid-June, depending on when Miami decides to get to phase 2.
To come.
Yeah,
it's crazy. There's so like wearing masks and doing all this stuff. It's just like it's nuts. Over there is. I mean, you're probably secluded from everybody. Are people taking it serious over there?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a ton of people wearing masks, but the town that I'm in, there's only been like 60 cases total, so it's not really that bad. And I mean, to be honest, I'm not like too worried about it.
But so I want to kind of start from like the beginning a little bit, and then we'll get into kind of what the business looks like. But say we would have, and you're a relatively young dude, but let's say we would have met in high school. What was like Brandyn like in high school? You know, were you like a shy kid? Did you play sports? Did you get good grades? Were you kind of like a bad student? You know, like, if we would have back in high school, what were you like?
So high school, I did play sports. I played primarily basketball. I wasn't like an A student, but I was probably like your typical like B student. And, I think I had like a 3.6. So it wasn't like horrible, but I really didn't care much for school. I basically was just like going to go to college to satisfy my parents. But yeah, I mean, most of the time I just messed around a lot and, probably was like considered the class clown. And, I wasn't really focused on anything but, partying and having fun and, girls and that kind of stuff.
Nice. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's crazy. And the reason I like that question is like, I feel like especially people who are younger, their perception of people of success are like, oh, they always started smart or they always started hustling and stuff, but it's not really always that way, man. A lot of times in high school, you eat shit, you kind of just do whatever, and that's perfect. Hey, dude, everyone's different journey, and you were playing sports and basketball and just messing around.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, high school was a totally different story for me than college. Like once I was on my own and like my freshman year of college, I joined a network marketing company. And once I like learned about like, personal development, going to seminars, doing that kind of stuff, I got obsessed and I really spent a lot of I remember my sophomore year of college, I think I drank like 3 or 4 times the whole year. Like all my friends were out partying and I was just like staying home on the weekends and reading and, working basically.
Yeah, that's
so like that was my shift when I turned 18. I was like, all right, like I'm an adult now. I need to take my life serious. So, people see my success now and think like, oh, it just happened overnight, but they didn't realize that, I started this at 18, so I'm 28 now. So it's been 10 years since I've been on this journey of growing and getting better and learning about entrepreneurship and success. So it's like, yeah, I'm 28 and I'm young, but I started, basically the youngest you can start, unless your parents were, amazing and helped you learn that stuff really young.
Yeah. There's so many good key points there. Like, he shifted kind of out of high school and got to get into college when you start learning,
Yep.
you join network, which I think network marketing has a lot of negative kind of connotation. I think that the good thing about it is that it teaches you those principles of personal development and getting out of your comfort zone and really learning sales and shit that matters in business. Dude, did you like coming out and like start that, like leaving high school, did you know that you wanted to be in business, or did you have like a different idea? Did you like know what you wanted to do in life, or?
Well, initially in high school, I thought I always just wanted to be a stock trader. That kind of was always something I was really interested in. And my uncle owned a company, and I used to work for him when I was in high school. And every morning he would trade from like 9 to 10, and he would make like a couple grand every morning or lose a couple grand. And it was always cool, like seeing that. And like, he had his main business, but every morning he would trade for an hour and make a couple grand. And you could tell, if he won or not based on his mood. So I always thought I wanted to be that. I kind of knew that I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted to work for myself. I didn't know in what. My dad owns a company. A lot of people in my family own a company. So, I thought it was just a necessary path, but I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I was just kind of at high school. I was just having fun.
Yeah, dude. And that's why I think it's so important to be around people who are either doing their own business or starting to do stuff. If you're fortunate enough that your parents have their own businesses, I think that's awesome. But if you're not that fortunate, it's not that hard to find people who are business owners, friends, family friends, and just hang around, like be intentional about hanging on them more. I mean, how much do you think that like influenced you to kind of get going in the, like this little entrepreneur journey and learn and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think it helped a lot. I mean, I'm super grateful for like my dad and my uncle, and they're my uncle's. He's probably worth multiple 8 figures. So learning from him was really cool. And my dad's successful, but he's not on that level. But like honestly, the thing I learned most from my uncle was like how not to be. Honestly, like because he made money his god, and like his day, like how he viewed stuff during the day. And like I was saying, his mood was all based on like if he made money that day or if things were going well. And so like I learned a lot from that. I'm like, I do not want to be like that, because that means your emotions are fluctuating way too much.
Yeah.
He did teach me a lot of principles about success, but besides that, I mean, I was just like, I do not want my day to be decided on if I made money today or not.
Yeah. That's such a good way to put that, man, because some people talk about like, or they think about successful people like, I want to be like them. I want to do things they do, but it's really important to extract things that you don't want to become. And I think that was a very insightful thing at such an early age to think like, shit, I understand he makes money, and so do I. I want to be 8 figures one day, but at the same time, I don't want my mood to be this way. I don't want to act this way. I don't think it's healthy to be like that. So as if you're listening and going around, along your journey and studying people and maybe being around certain people, think about also what you don't want or what qualities you probably don't want for yourself from them. It doesn't make them good or bad. It just makes them things you want or don't want. So I think that's an awesome point that you bring up there. And now let's fast forward a little bit. So you kind of started that network journey. You learn more personal development. You're 18. You're probably getting it going.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you start like finding real estate, and was it like moments in time? Was it like one moment that you're like, all right, I'm going to do this? Or was it like a couple different things? You're like, all right, maybe let me inch my way into it. How was that?
So I had tried, I was like doing network marketing for probably like 3 or 4 years. So like
Wow.
I was having like relative success, but I was making like $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month, which like whatever, 18 to 21, 22, you think you're gonna, that's rich, but it wasn't a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then basically the network marketing company that I was a part of, it just fucking fell flat on its face. And after that, I was like, all right, like I need to focus on something that's more stable, I felt. And, I tried network marketing for 3 or 4 years. I wasn't, making significant amount of money. So I was like, I need to try something that would be better. And I had a friend who was like 3 or 4 years older than me, and he was flipping houses. And so I started working with him, and they had, so they were buying houses at auction. And so I was kind of like the person that drove to every single house and like tried to get into the house or take pictures of the house and assess how much needed to be done. So I was doing that for like 7-8 months. And so I worked for them for like 7-8 months. And then me and the owners kind of like butt heads over certain things. Like I was just like, honestly, this whole auction thing is not really, I think, smart, because you're at the mercy of what is coming out to auction. So I wanted to start doing like off market and marketing, and they weren't really interested in that. So that was when I kind of was like, all right, I think I can do this better. And I stepped out and went on and did it on my own.
I love that. Dude, I think it's so inspiring to see something like that, because there's and I would like to bounce this off you. Why do you think people are so against working for other people? Like you started your own thing eventually, but in the beginning, like you wanted to learn about real estate. So you worked for a company that kind of taught you at least some of the ropes, and you learned a little. Why do you feel people are like against maybe when they start like working for somebody else, or it doesn't have to be forever, but I don't know. I think I read a stat that 7 out of 10 millionaires work for somebody.
Yeah.
What is your take on people like working for others and stuff? I know you're an entrepreneur and you kind of come from that background, but I'm sure you can attest to some different things about it.
I mean, at that point, I didn't really have a choice. I was so broke. They were paying me like salary like $1,500 a month, so I was like making nothing. So like I was just doing it because I needed money, and I liked real estate. It was interesting to me. But I think the main reason why is people it's ego. They like think, they can do it better. And I think it's smart to, unless you have like tens of thousands of dollars to like use to fuck up, then go for that. But if you don't, then I think it's smart to just, learn under someone else, see how it works, all the ins and outs of it, and then see, if that's something you can go do on your own. Because I think a lot of people see wholesaling and think it's like having a decent sized operation is easy, but it's really not that easy. So it's good to like go in and see what it's like and see if it's something that you think you do or something you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Dude, and I heard you say like you thought when you were working for them that auctions was like a mistake because mercy. I think that's about what is maybe a huge mistake that comes to mind that maybe you made in your wholesaling or just investment career in general that you're like, damn, I wish I would have done that mistake sooner. I wish I would have like thought about it differently, or I wish I could have avoided something like that. What kind of comes to mind when you think of like huge mistake?
Hindsight, I think the biggest mistakes I've made is not holding on to properties. I think that's the biggest mistake, because I started in 2015 for them, 2016 on my own. And I got properties then that I wholesaled that made like 30 grand on or whatever, 40 grand. But then, there was like one house that I remember I got in Orlando that I got for 50 grand and I wholesaled it for 80. And now that house is worth like 220. And I'm like,
Wow.
dude, if I just kept on to that. So I think my biggest mistakes is I just got too obsessed with like making this quick, like 20, 30 grand. And, you know, I think that was my biggest mistakes that I've made. And I still, you know, all the stuff that I'm doing now, like I still don't even hold the property. Like I was having my first property that I was going to buy as a rental. I had got under contract in the beginning of March, and I was getting all set to buy it as a rental. And then the freaking pandemic happens, and I'm like, all right, well, because out of pocket, I was going to have to come out of pocket like 40, 50 grand. And I'm like, I just don't think it's smart to park 40, 50 grand right now.
The multifamily project you're telling me about?
Yeah, it was a multifamily.
Damn.
So that's why I was like, you know what? I'd rather just wholesale it. So I wholesaled it and made like 20, but I didn't think it was smart right now to park that much money, especially with like so much uncertainty with what's going on, you know, and I have a feeling the market's going to go down a little bit at least. So I think there'll be better buys down the line.
Better deals to come. So yeah, that's a beautiful lesson. You know, I think a lot of people, they think about like in real estate, at least they're like, man, I should have bought more. It's like a common lesson, and you know, there's different opinions and advice, but if you're listening to this and you're wholesaling and you're making a little bit of cash, maybe not this specific time in Corona times and all this, but overall in general, if you find deals that the first step is come up with a rental and return criteria that you're okay with getting. If you invest your money in a house, what percent return would you like? How much equity would you like? Mm-hmm. You know, come up with those little standards. And when something meets those standards, go after it, you know, and keep one or two, make sure you have enough cash to operate a business. Are there any like tips that you could give, you know, someone listening, if they were to keep some rentals, like what are some things that you might think about? Because you've wholesaled a ton of property. I haven't really kept any, but you've wholesaled a ton. Wholesale two renters, two people who buy and rent. Some of the most successful buy and renters, like what do you think that they do that maybe some of the audience can implement?
Well, in my opinion, I think the smartest thing to do would be, you know, if you want your first rentals with minimal money out of pocket, I think the smartest ones are to just buy them subject to or seller finance. You know, I've been really getting into that over the last like two months, through a buddy of mine named Pace Morby and Cody Barton. They do a ton of subject to and seller financing. And so I just got our first two properties under contract now for subject to and seller financing. So I think that's a smart way to go because you can get minimal out of pocket and you know, make a good cash flow.
Hell yeah.
The one that we're taking over it literally wouldn't be possible unless we were doing it subject to. So now I look at my database and I have, you know, 5,000 leads in my database. And it's like, there's so much different opportunities because of that than I wasn't even seeing before. You know, I think that's a smart way to go is like, especially with like someone like yourself where you already have leads coming in, then it's like, you know, have those options. Like Pace was telling me something, which I thought was freaking nuts. 60% of homes out there right now are owned free and clear. 60%. So like those, like some of those older people, like it's so easy. Like the one that we got right now, one of the seller financing deals we have, it's a mobile home was just rehabbed like 3 years ago. It's rented for $1,100 a month. They're just tired of being a landlord, and so we're giving them $500 a month for 220 months. So not only are we going to cash flow like $600 a month, but on top of that, that $500 a month is going straight towards principal every month.
Principal only.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So 0% interest. You're not going to get that. I mean, those are the best deals you can get.
Beautiful. Yeah, because it costs you very little out of pocket. And let me back up for a sec, just in case you're listening and maybe got a little lost. What he's saying is that we were talking about rentals and buying, and he said maybe some of the smartest ways to buy without much money is, you know, subject to or start a financing type deal. What's two is I mean, this is a pretty broad subject, but in a summary, is basically you're buying a home subject to an existing mortgage. And the way that you do that is basically through paperwork. If you don't know where to find the paperwork, I would suggest attorneys or I don't know if there's a specific course or something that might have paperwork, but I think an attorney or
go to, subject2.com. They have a lot of information there. And that's actually owned by my friend Pace Morby, but he's a creative financing wizard.
Love it. Yeah. So there you go.
I had him on a call with my acquisitions 3 weeks ago, where he spent 6 hours teaching them the ins and outs of Subject 2. And this is someone like, he charges like $400 or $500 a month or an hour for this kind of stuff, and he did it for free for me just because I helped him a lot on the wholesale side.
Wow.
It was freaking amazing, and I actually have that. So I have recorded it. So if you want, I'll share it with you too, so you can.
Dude, that's awesome. I'm gonna have to like maybe eat half an Adderall and 6 hours.
1.5 speed and just
crush it. It's like a master. It's like a whole weekend.
So good. It was massive value, and I was not expecting. I was expecting like an hour. So I bought him a year's supply. He loves. He's a Mormon, so he doesn't drink or smoke or do any of that kind of stuff. Really? So I bought him a year's supply worth of monsters because he loves.
That'll help. Man, that's awesome.
Yeah. So. So there you go. About like the Subject 2 stuff that I think will help some of your listeners and why be beneficial is like, example, we got Subject 2 just numbers on why it would work as a Subject 2. It's like a Subject 2 flip, I guess would be the easiest way to explain it. But and why it would work as that and not as like a flip. So this guy, he owes to the bank $115,000. Okay. He only wants $12,000 walk away. So out of pocket, we're paying $12,000 to him, and then it's going to need like $15,000 worth of work. So out the door, we're going to be out of pocket $30,000. Mm-hmm. Well, when this thing sells, it'll sell around like 175, 180, maybe 185. So we're looking at, we're probably net after everything $30K. So cash on cash, we invested $30,000 because we just took over his mortgage, and we're not paying for that. We're just paying the monthly mortgage payments, but we're not paying that full $115,000 to buy it. So cash, we're only out $30,000, but we made $30,000. So we basically made 100% ROI on our money. Whereas if you're flipping it, we'd have to pay the $115,000 plus the $30,000, so you're out of pocket $145,000, and then if you're only making $30,000 on $145,000, you're looking at like a 15-16% ROI, which is really not good enough for a flip. So creative way to make more money.
That is extremely interesting. If you're listening, I don't get lost, right? Like this is a topic that takes some time to, but do your research, right? Go to the website. I'm sure on YouTube he's got some videos, or maybe it's a podcast or something.
Videos. He's got a Facebook group. It's called Creative Financing with Pace Morby. I mean, he's just so good at it, and there's so much information on it. And honestly, when he first started telling me about it, I was like, Jesus, like I can't believe I haven't been doing this for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I remember I lost a lease option deal, I think like a year ago. I wasn't able to there was some complications in it, but moral of the story is like there's tons of potential and things like that, because a lot of other wholesalers or investors are just literally throwing those leads away because they just don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So if you spend a couple hours learning how to do it, and maybe learning a simple sales pitch that it's not confusing to the seller, you can for sure capitalize on another deal every quarter, or et cetera. Maybe you can buy 3 rentals a year that way. And those little things add up. Dude, and Brandyn, so what is your, I know it's like kind of Corona times and maybe things are slightly different, but roughly what does your business look like now? As far as like people, teams, and kind of like what you guys are doing?
So I have 4 acquisition managers. I have two distributors. I have three and everyone uses me. And
hold on, because it cut off.
My team looks like 4 acquisition managers, 2 disposition managers, 13 cold callers, and around 7 BAs. So, and an assistant. I forgot about her.
And
so,
all virtual.
Yeah, everyone's virtual. We don't have an office or any setup or anything like that.
Love that.
I allow my acquisitions and dispositions that if they want like a workspace, like a WeWork or a, anything like similar co-working space, that we'll pay for that if they want to go in. But most of them don't.
Nice. And, so basically you how long did it take before you started kind of hiring out some people? I feel like that's a question that obviously there's many answers. And there's many different opinions, but you have a very lean business. It's all virtual. You're in different markets, and you do quite a bit of marketing. But and you've been working on yourself and on all those things for a while. So, well, when was it you started kind of like, all right, I need some help. I'm going to hire what was your first hire, and like, why did you start doing this stuff?
Well, when I first started, I was just basically a one-man team. And the worst part is that I was flipping. So like I did like the opposite of what everyone else tends to do today of, they wholesale first and then flip. When I first started, I raised money from a gentleman that I met at a networking event. And so I used his money to do flips.
Really?
But so I was like, I was doing acquisitions to get the deals. Then I was managing the rehabs, and then I was helping sell them on the back end with realtors. It was a clusterfuck. Like it was so hard. And like I was working probably 75, 80 hours a week. And that's the same bug that I have now where like I was basically in that year, I was living in a different city a month at a time. So like it was really, really tough. So I started to realize that I needed to have someone on my team to help. And so like my first hire was an acquisition manager because I needed someone to handle all the calls and all that kind of stuff. So that was my first hire. And then that was after like 7 or 8 months by doing it all by myself. And so that was basically after that. Then it was just slowly hiring, then I hired another acquisition manager, then I hired a dispo, and then I just slowly started adding more and more people to the team.
Nice. Yeah. So, it's so easy to just go out and hire people, but it's a different thing to do it correctly, which is I think the way that you did it. And it's based on demand, like you had more leads than you can personally handle, Brandon, so. Yeah. He's like, all right, now I need somebody to help me handle more leads. And then you bring somebody on board. You brought an acquisitions in this case, and then you probably brought another one or maybe a dispo and et cetera, et cetera. So I think that, there's plenty of books and things, and this is not an easy topic. This is something that if you're a business owner, you're always going to make mistakes. You're always going to learn, and you're going to make bad hires. It's just going to happen. Like, but the best thing I could say is, hire based on demand. Don't just hire because you feel you need to hire and other people are hiring. When you have physically more than enough leads than you can handle, then hire somebody. If you can't speak with enough buyers, or maybe you need an admin because you got flips and things going on, hire an admin, but don't do it just because of other people. I mean, what are like some misconceptions you think you've, because you talk to a lot of wholesalers and stuff, like what are some misconceptions about like running a team and hiring people in this industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really just hit it on the head. It's just don't hire until you need it. I think that's a lot of people, they just want to be a business owner so bad that they'll hire, when it's too early. Like I have a friend that he has an acquisition manager, but he probably only gets, I don't know, like 20 leads a week. You know what I mean? So it's like you're only doing like 1 or 2 deals a month. Like, why are you like, you should be keeping all that money for yourself so that you can pay yourself and then reinvest it. And then, once you're getting to like 3 or 4 or 5 deals, and that's when you start bringing people on.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't start bringing someone on until I was doing at least 2 deals a month, but I was also doing flips. So my pay per deal was like 35, 40 grand, so I had a lot of money to play with in order to do that.
Yeah. And you said something that's really important, that's not talked about too much. And it's paying yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Something that it changes the game. It changes the psychology of the way you run a business and the way you run your life. If you're in business, whether you have a team or don't have a team, you got to pay yourself, man. You got to pay yourself first. You got to create a little strategy or a little bit of when a commission check comes in or when an assignment comes in. A percentage of that goes to you or a specific salary. What do you think about that? Like, did it take you a while to learn that? Or did you always from the beginning get that?
I was always pretty good at paying myself. I always found a way.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, now how I kind of do it is my monthly overheads around 40-ish, 45 a month. So basically when I have any more than 80 grand in my business account, I just take a disbursement and pay myself. That's kind of how I do it. So if I have a fat month where I made 220, then, I'll get a nice little payday out of that. Month. So that's kind of how I yeah. So that was, the March was supposed to be my best month of all time, where we were supposed to do 350,000. Wow. And then Corona hit, and we had $150,000 worth of deals fall through. That was fun.
150K of deals fall through. That is that I think a couple gray hairs could grow out of that for sure.
All of the self-work and meditations and self-awareness took a lot of practice to not go nuts during that.
That's when you go and get a big house on the ranch somewhere to just get away from every fucking thing.
But it's hard to go justify to yourself when you're oh, I just had $150,000 worth of deals fall through, but I'm gonna go spend $10,000 a month for a house in Sedona. So it's hard to justify it to yourself. But at that point, I was going so nuts. I'm I just need to get the hell out of Miami. So that's when I was whatever, I'll do it.
That's what we gotta do. That's, man. If you're listening to this, dude, you gotta. Brandon's such a good dude to talk about, to just listen to, because although it seems like he moved really fast, he really been working on this since he was young, right? He wasn't in the real estate business in general, but he was always listening to his uncles and his father, talking about business and money. I'm sure you did a lot of reading. You mentioned seminars early. This stuff, I know some people might think some hoorah stuff, but this shit's real, man. Mindset, learning from good people, all that stuff is the real deal. That shit, it's very hard to become successful without that stuff.
Yeah, I actually, for people that are at the beginning of their journey, I have a pretty good story of how mine went. So obviously I told you that I quit with the guys that I was working for, and at this point, I think I had $2,000 or $3,000 left in my bank account. And, flipping and wholesaling on my own. And so the money that I raised from the guy, he gave me money to market. And so I had spent $10,000 on marketing, and we've gotten one deal. And I'm holy shit, maybe that's why they didn't do it. And I'm second guessing myself. I'm Jesus, now I'm negative 10 grand in the hole to this guy. We've only gotten one deal, and that deal even ended up falling through because it was way worse than we expected. And so I'm nervous as shit, and I'm just oh my god, I got $2,000 to $3,000 a month, or $2,000 to $3,000 left in my bank account. So I remember I started looking at could I Uber with the car that I had? No. So worst case, I'll Uber and at least have some side money until I can get this figured out. So then I had then I spent $3,000 or $4,000, I spent $4,000 more. And out of that $4,000, we got 4 deals. And so that was when it all changed for me. And at this point, the 3 of them, and one of them I did wholesale. Well, I saw all this money I was gonna make. And so at the time I was dating this girl and going to Europe for a month. And so I was like,
Hold on, I cut off your.
gotcha. Okay. So yeah, I mean, basically I was dating this, the girl I was dating at this time, she was going to Europe for a month, and I had never been to Europe. I really wanted to go to Europe. And so I was like, all right, I want to go, but I only had $2 or $3 left in my bank account. So I remember talking to my friend and I was like, hey man, and he was in real estate as well. And he was new as well. And, I was like, yo, I have all these deals coming in. One of them's like a 15K wholesale that I'm going to make. And then I have those 3 flips that they're going to close, they're going to close in a couple of months. And so I was like, can I borrow money to go to Europe? And he's like, yeah, just use one of my credit cards. And so I used this credit card to book all of my trips to Europe. And and this is for like a 3-week trip. And so then and the deal was supposed to close before Europe, but it was a probate deal. So it kept getting pushed back and pushed back. So at this point, I'm in fucking Europe. I'm in Rome. I remember I'm in Rome. I have like $800 left in my bank account. And I'm just like freaking out because I'm like, fuck, like I really don't want to call my parents and be like, hey, I'm in Europe. Can I borrow money? So I was like nervous now. And then the seller was like, there were some issues going on with title. And so long story short, the title had to get switched from a title company in Orlando to one in Fort Lauderdale. And the owner was in Orlando. He's all pissed. So he's, all right, I'm not going to close. And I'm in Europe. I'm like, no, like, his name was Ralph, and I remember being like, Ralph, like, dude, like, I'll buy you a flight to Fort Lauderdale. It's like, all right, if you buy me a flight. So like, a flight was like $300 for a round trip from Orlando to Fort Lauderdale, and I bought him the flight, and the deal ended up closing. And then like a day later, I had like $15,000 in my bank account, and I'm like, holy crap, I've never had this much money in my bank account. And so like, trip went from like being broke as fuck the first week to the next 2 weeks like just bawling out.
All in for sure.
So, but it was scary there for a while because at this point still I was like in 15-20 grand worth of credit card debt that I was spending on marketing and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's a really good story, man. That's fun.
Yeah, it was scary at the time, but it's cool looking back now.
Dude, but those are some of the calculated risks that you got to take, man. Like there's no. You don't really get much reward just depending on the risk. Like if you keep it very low risk all the time and you're like, oh, I'm only going to spend 1,000 and then 2,000 and then 3,000 a month in marketing, like you're going to get those results. Yeah, you might pop a 20 or 30K deal, but you're more likely to pop a 20 or 30K deal when you spend a little bit more. I mean, I'm not saying just spend and don't,
calculated spending.
Yeah, make sure you got your tracking in order. Make sure that you can handle the leads. You know what to say. You got some scripts. You got a little process in place. But I think that's a beautiful example of you had so much belief in yourself that you're like, yeah, I don't know exactly how I'm going to make this money, but I'm going to start wholesaling. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to spend money on marketing, even if it's my credit card. Yeah. I'm going to bounce to Europe, which that's a pretty funny, that's a young move, but I love it. I'm going to bounce to Europe and I'm going to figure this shit out. Like that is a really good indication of like, dude, I believe that I can get this thing done. I think that's like the first step. You have to believe this shit's going to work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think like something that I've really learned from, to phase out again, are you good?
No, good.
All right. Yeah. So one of the things, like, so when this whole pandemic thing happened, I kind of did what everyone else did. And I was like, so for like 3 weeks, I like cut my bills down and like half and like stopped spending as much money on marketing. And then we started getting less deals, ironically enough. And so I was just like, you know what? Like, I feel like that's what everyone else is doing. So I feel like now I should just spend more. And so then after that, I was like, all right, screw it, I'm gonna spend more. And then now we've been spending more, and now we've been getting even more deals than we were before. And it's just like crazy how, everyone else, like I started being like, wait, everyone else is doing that, so I probably shouldn't do that. I should just spend more and see what happens. And we've been getting deals, and you know, it was rough there for a little bit because we were spending so much more money, but then like not getting as many. But now these last like 2 or 3 weeks, I think the last 2 or 3 weeks we've gotten 12 deals. So it's been working now ever since I, started more.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like the initial hit of when this all started was kind of scary for everyone.
Yeah.
No matter how good or bad your business was, it was just scary, and buyers were off, sellers were off. But I think that's such a great point. Like if you're listening to this, these hard times are exactly when your competition starts quitting, or this is exactly when everyone starts pulling back. And that's that fear in the market. That's that fear. Yep. So I think Brandon's point is, if you got your stuff down packed, it's okay to spend the market. Like do what you got to do, because deals are still happening out there. Like for us, for Brandon, for many other people that are still doing this business. I was just on a call with like 10 other guys yesterday, like high level. Mm-hmm. Everyone's still doing massive amounts of deals. So think about that. Dude, Brandon, and so kind of like last like question or two before we wrap this thing up.
Okay.
Kind of taking it like in a bigger scale. You know, what do you think about when I say like $100 million to get to 100 mil? Where does your mind go? It's more to get the wheels turning. It's not like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's kind of always been my target of where I've wanted to go and where I wanted to be. You know, I think when I was younger, I had aspirations for like billions, but then I kind of realized like that's really my ego. But no, I mean, I think to get there, you're not going to get there wholesaling. You know, you could make, a couple million a year wholesaling, but it'd take you a while. I think the real way to get there is through multifamily and diversifying your investments and stuff like that. But I think, real estate should always be the backbone of, if you're not doing it in real estate, you're probably going to have to either do it in like, finance with stock or Forex or in technology company or something like that. So I think, and that's kind of always been my goal, is hitting that. But either way, like I try not to think about that too much, because it's like, then I'm going to always be pissed off that I'm not there yet, so I just try to focus on having as, good of a life as I can right now. And, and understand that, even through something like this pandemic, like we could die any moment, so like
that's a really fun
moment, and living in the now, and, everything will work out.
Oh yeah, that's deep, man. That's shit can happen, man. Like this pandemic happened now. Tomorrow it can be, a rock crashing from outer space into the middle of the ocean. Like who knows, right? Like there's so much random things that can happen, and it's proven. It's not like we're making this up. Like it's history, right? There's been the plague. There's been meteorites crashing here. Like there's been so many like crazy, outrageous, out of left field things. What's to say it can't happen tomorrow and something changes, or maybe you get really sick. Hopefully, knock on wood. I'm just saying in general, so many things. So I think it's good to have that big goal, and I love asking that question because it just gets the wheels turning. Yeah. But at the same time, enjoy the moments and just be happy where you're at. Dude, so last kind of thing to kind of help the new listener out here. Let's say, you lost all the money, you don't have it anymore. Trump wiped your shit. You got $500 in your account. Well, how would you get a deal nowadays? Like what would you do to get a deal? You got a couple $100 in your account.
I've got a couple $100. I would apply for as many credit cards as I can, all at the exact same moment. So I'd try to raise as much money as I could through credit. And then I would just, if that was the case, I would pull a list for however much money I have and just cold call, text it, RVM it, door knock it, whatever, to try to get my first deal, to at least try to get some money in the bank. But I mean, the world's full of money. It's not hard to find it. You gotta know who has it. And I mean, when I initially raised, the first couple $100,000 I raised, I had $2,000 to my name. I had fucking nothing. Yeah. And this guy that I didn't even know at a networking event gave me the money.
That's crazy, man.
Like, it's insane.
By the way, something like that happening to Brandon can absolutely happen to you. You just have to be kind of like open for it. You have to be Brandon was already like looking at opportunities and stuff. Yeah, what were you saying?
No, what I did is I put myself in a situation. So like I lived in Orlando at the time, and there was an event called the Red Carpet Monday, which it's $40 to get in, right? So there already, for most people, for a freaking Monday night, that's a expensive amount of money to spend on just to go to a networking event. So I spent the money on that, and then I just started networking with people there, and I figured some people there had money. And then I just remember talking to this guy, and he was like, oh yeah, I bought like 20 lots of land by Disney for $20,000 in 2011. And I just sold them all for $200K a pop last year. And I'm like, oh, you got a lot of money, And I was like, oh, let's grab lunch. I want to learn about what you did. Just like that.
Nice. Dude, that could absolutely happen to anyone. You got to put yourself in the situation. You got to be mentally ready for that too, man. Because if you're not like reading, if you're not like up in your game, when someone tells you something like that, you might think like, oh, this guy just like, got lucky. But it's like whether he did or he didn't, you got to be ready to say like, okay, he has X million, I have the skill how to find deals. Let's go to lunch and see if we can put this together. Like he was kind of thinking about that. And I would just say, if you're listening to this, man, number one, if you're listening to this, so you're already a step ahead because you're already kind of trying to learn a little bit more, educate yourself. And just be aware and put yourself in those situations, bro. That's gold, man. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, but that was part of the benefit of me working for the other company at first, because I was like, listen, I've already been working for them for 7-8 months. I know exactly what they're doing. I feel I could do it better. Like I just need the money.
Yeah.
And that was kind of, I mean, at one point I had a couple million of his money that we were buying fix and flips with. Yeah.
Wow. And are you guys still boys even today?
Yeah, we still do deals together now. I mean, at one point he owned 40% of my company.
Wow.
And now it's basically zero, but we're still friends, and I still pay him. I still give him little disbursements here and there because he was the only one that believed in me at that point.
Wow, that's awesome.
And he has so much money that it's like I'd be kind of stupid to burn that bridge, because you don't know, like down the line I might need that money again.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So just stuff like that.
Yeah, you got to treat your people right. But dude, that was amazing, man. This has been awesome. I took a bunch of notes here. How can people, if they want to follow you or reach out to you, or maybe because Brandon does deals in Orlando, Tampa, and anywhere else?
Dallas and San Antonio.
Dallas and San Antonio. So if you got deals up there, either buyers, sellers, how can people reach out to you or your team and kind of learn more about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, my Facebook and Instagram is the same. It's just Brandyn, Brandyn Schwalm, SCHWALM.
Yep.
So just reach out to me there, and I'll be glad to help you, regardless of whether or not you have deals or not.
Love it. I'll put his Instagrams and stuff on the show notes there, and yeah, man, we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Again, bro, I appreciate you coming on. If you're listening to this on iTunes, feel free to watch it on YouTube, the channel Raul Bulufe, or the website raulbulufe.com. Other than that, bro, thank you for coming on, man. I'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Peace.